great to have you here.
I had decided I wanted to get into events.
Don't rush into anything.
Left university and pretty much went straight into it.
It's just got to happen. So do what you need to make it happen.
I've never been one to follow rules.
We've spent a lot of time together, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
Always keeping up with trends and fads.
How do you manage that, the expectations versus the reality of budgeting?
It's always insightful to get a gauge as to what their reference point is with budget.
Pre-COVID, I didn't know what Zoom was.
You know, everything is done to a higher level.
That detail Jeremy and the band and the guys will go into, by definition, makes our life easier.
There's levels and levels, and that comes in the detail. Hello and welcome to Season 2 of The Secret World of Events. My name is Gavin Alexander. I'm going to be hosting you through this show. And in this season, I'm going to be going a bit further afield with my guests joining me on the podcast. I'm delighted to kick things off with an international team of planners, Ruby J Events, who have offices both in London and New York and have a footprint in the luxury world of events and also in the corporate world. Welcome both, Lucie and Joanna.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good afternoon and good morning. How are you?
I know. What time is it? I have no idea.
Now, Joanna, am I clear to call you Jo for the purposes of this podcast?
I think we're friends enough now that I can allow that to happen, yeah.
Okay. So unusually for our viewers, I want to explain just why we've got Jo in on a screen and not sitting in the studio, because Jo just happens to be in New York City.
Sure am.
So, Lucie, let's kick off things with you.
Great.
Just to establish things, Lucie is very nervous. So let's just watch in 5 minutes' time. Her shoulders will drop and she'll be absolutely great, because I know she's really looking forward to this. Lucie, tell me, Ruby J Events for you and Jo, where did it all begin?
Where did it all begin? Jo and I worked together many, many moons ago and looked at the industry and decided we wanted to branch out and start our own company. We knew we could do it.
Jo, for you, this was in the events industry itself and you were working for somebody else, yes?
Correct. We were both working for someone else. We were out one night, some wine, some pasta. One thing led to another. And then at the end of the night, we were going to start our company.
Amazing.
For us, it was very much like, what's the worst thing that can happen?
And did it?
That was our attitude the whole time.
Did it happen?
Well, we're sitting here now talking to you.
There you go.
How many years later?
14
years. Amazing. Where does the name Ruby J come from?
Oh, that's an easy one. My maiden name was Rubenstein, and I was called Ruby by all my friends at university.
And the J is for Joanna.
J is for Joanna.
Fantastic. Joanna, London and New York. Tell me briefly, like, how did you end up with the big ticket to New York and the New York apartment?
How did I end up with that? Honestly, I'm going to use the word fate. It was a lot of hard work. I had always wanted to be in New York, but working for someone else, timing in life just never was right. And at one point I thought it was never going to happen. Fast forward to 2009, 10, and we were doing a lot of work in London for American clients. And they always were saying to us, you guys would do so well out there. There's a big, hole in the market for you. And obviously my ears were like perking up. And then in 2013, we decided to do it. 2014, I moved out here. And it's 9 years this year that we've had our office.
Amazing. Because you two
kind of just came together.
You two are really solid partners, aren't you? I mean, you're like best friends and partners, aren't you?
We started as best
friends. I think we're truly the luckiest. I do.
Yeah, because I think out of all the sort of planners we work with, you two, you have a bond, you have a business, you haven't fallen out. At least not on the surface of things. What is it you both
really haven't?
What is it you even deep down? What is it you both most love about the sort of event planning world?
We'll probably say quite different things.
Yeah.
I love the people, the diversity of clients that I meet, mainly the clients and our suppliers, and the personalities that I meet, meeting new people. I love that side of it from a social point of view. A lot of our clients, whether they're corporate or private or social, have become friends of ours or of mine.
And for you, Joanna?
I mean, I don't want anyone to think that I don't love my clients, because I also love meeting new people.
We all love our clients.
Let's just add that in. Yeah. Honestly, for me, I travel so much. And it was kind of one of those things, careful what you wish for, because I used to wish to travel all the time and now I'm traveling every month. and the places we go to, like some of the most amazing locations that we've got to work on that I never in my wildest dreams thought we'd be working, and being able to give back to the local communities when we're there. That's amazing.
So, I mean, the title of today's show is Destination Planning. And what I most love about having you guys on, and why I wanted you for the premiere episode for season 2, is because of the diversity of work that you girls deliver, which for me sort of stands you apart from a lot of the other people, I see and work with across the years. And also because you have a very big footprint in the corporate world as well. What can you tell me about that, and where did that sort of start for you guys?
The corporate, I do feel like it was kind of fluke. Listen, we don't advertise, it's all word of mouth. So any client that we're getting is because they've either been at one of our events, they've been recommended, and we kind of fell into it. And then when I came over to New York, it was a very conscious decision to make sure I was going after that corporate world, because that's what I love doing. We've done wedding for so many years. I just felt like it was a good breakaway for me.
Yeah, whilst you're talking, Jo, I'm just popping up a quick time lapse. I think, is this in Los Angeles?
That's right.
Yeah, that was Super Bowl last year, 2022.
So you guys, I mean, I've seen your social media over the years. You are at some of the biggest sporting events on the planet. Lucy, you the World Cup this summer?
I just got goosebumps as you said that.
Yeah. You were at the World Cup?
No, I was at the
World Cup.
Jo was at the World Cup. I was at the Winter Olympics.
You were at the Winter Olympics. Okay.
We had simultaneous events going
I mean,
on at the same time.
so I'm just going to put my hand up because I literally fall over when I see your stuff. So I know you've definitely done Super Bowl stuff. You've done Olympics. I remember Sochi you did. Was it Sochi?
We did London Olympics, Sochi, Brazil.
I can't even think where we are now. We've basically done them all.
You've done them all. Amazing.
20 to 12.
And that's working with large corporate clients where you're making basically, let's say, a giant party for them to bring guests into.
We're doing hospitality and the giant parties.
Wow. I mean, pretty incredible.
So we go into a venue, the clients book an amazing hotel, and we go into the existing rooms, function rooms of the hotel, and completely transform them to feel like it's always been a very cool hospitality space. And then throughout the 2 weeks, month, however long the program is, guests come in and that's their home. So where they eat all their meals, where they work, have meetings, and then we do off-site parties as well.
Can I ask you if there's, and it's probably hard to say if there's one type of event you prefer, but I do ask a lot of the guests on the podcast, is there one type of event you prefer to take on? Would it be a wedding? Is it a private party? Is it corporate? Or is that where the yin and the yang of you two work really well?
Yes. That's where the yin
corporate's definitely I love sports. So for me to suddenly be thrown into this sporting world, and so many of our clients are in the sporting world, it's like a dream for me.
Amazing. And Lucy, for you?
I think it's a bit of both. I mean, I do love the corporate world because I like the creativity that we can put into it, the branding, all of that sort of stuff. But I also do really like the wedding style side of things, mainly because of the relationship that I build with the client and the length of time that I have to do that.
Now, you mentioned the word creativity there, and you sort of say, I love it because we can put the creativity into the corporate side, but you are very, very well known with our team for putting creativity across all your events.
That's right. But I mean, when you talk about weddings versus a party versus corporate, it all kind of comes together as one. The trends of what is creative in the world of events, whether it be a wedding, a corporate event, or a party for a graduation party, kind of is all the same to us. There are trends that happen, and yes, there are specific trends for each year, but they run across all the different events. They're not one specific.
Okay, well, we're going to come to trends of 2023 a little bit later on in the show. This is just a build at Claridge's. You do a lot of the build sort of films, don't you? You quite like these, Jo, don't you?
Yeah, I love them. Honestly, with any client, they're so visual. You know, it's easy for us to walk into a room, an empty room, and to see what we can do. But to be able to show a client the before and after, I mean, that, you know, it kind of sells itself.
And Lucy, what's your approach to sort of working with clients or on events? Where do you sort of start the destination journey of the planning?
Just by listening to whether it be a message that they want to convey coming into the event and convey to their guests, or whether it's a personal thing and a wedding, and we listen to what the brief is. And I know that everyone will say that, we're always listening to our clients and we want to portray what they want and their personalities. But it really is the truth. Like, you have to listen to what they want because everything is so specific to that particular client. And that's why we want to get to know them.
The difference,
first and foremost.
Yeah, the difference between corporate and the private market is actually huge, isn't it? Because when you're dealing with private market, you're dealing with private money, and it sometimes have a little bit of a different feel. Whereas I would imagine, Jo, if you're dealing with a corporate, they tell you what the budget is that you have to work with from the off, so you know where you are.
I think years ago it used to be like that, but you have to remember we started in 2009, so we were just off the back of the recession ultimately. So we've only really known a life of every budget is precious, whether it's corporate or from a family bank. And that's one thing that we do. We never want our conversations to always be about money with clients, but if we can have an open conversation about how much you want to spend, whether it's for a 1,000-person meeting or 200-person wedding, we can go away and tailor make something because we can spend money.
Yeah,
if you have it, we'll spend it.
On screen now, Lucy, was a gorgeous party. Was it?
A nice one.
I'm going to take a guess. Rob Van Helden for the flowers there.
It was Rob Van Helden.
It looks very signature, doesn't it? Really, really gorgeous. This was a party at Claridge's, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was a good one. That was a nice one.
It was really pretty, this one.
Really, really pretty. So in terms of where do you draw your creativity from? Because I know you said you speak to the clients, you hear where they are, but you still have to come back with an approach of how you want to do things to put your signature on it. And I guess a lot that comes from the suppliers that you work with. You're very loyal to your suppliers, aren't you?
Very much so. You have to be. You have to have the trust in... clients have to have the trust in us that we have the vision, that we can put that out and create their vision. But we have to have the trust in our suppliers that they're listening to us.
It's going to happen.
And they're going to execute it.
Yeah, because I know working with you over the years, the production side, you have used that team for very, very many years, and they are literally just part of you, aren't they now?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have a team that you can trust wholeheartedly and that they don't know that what we're expecting out of them, we're not going to be able to transform that or put that into an event and feel happy about it.
Jo, can I ask you, having stepped both sides of the Atlantic, how do you feel that, let's take weddings, how do you feel that the planning process of a wedding maybe differs in New York as it does to perhaps London?
I'm going to have to be careful how I answer this because people from both sides of the pond are going to be watching.
Well, I mean, the people are very different, so their expectations could be very different.
America in general, and I know this growing up, like everyone sees America as bigger and better. America like to do things on a large scale. But I will say we do less weddings over here. And that was the conscious decision for me when I moved here, that I wasn't going out to go and find weddings. We've done some amazing weddings over here, but that's definitely not our core market. But ultimately, this can sound really cheesy. A wedding comes down to bride and groom and their family and friends in a room.
That's not cheesy. That's the truth.
But it's material, It doesn't matter where in the world you're doing it.
And for you, Lucy,
it's about love.
But I also think, to add on top of what Jo's just said, is that we also have quite a lot of American brides and grooms who actually want to plan their wedding in the UK.
Yeah.
So they're coming over. So they've got Jo on the ground in America and us on the ground here. And we're often doing things over, video calls and things like that. But they know that they've got the trust on both sides of the bond.
I mean, that's a great USP for you guys, isn't it? That you can book a US couple to come to London and know that it's handled by one team and it's genuinely one team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Exactly.
If I was to ask you, Lucy, what you think makes a great party, what would you say?
The people. I mean, it really is about trying to get the best atmosphere, and all we're doing is trying to put the guests in their best environment to be able to get the best out of them.
Yeah. I had a meeting with a client yesterday who was massively stressing. She's at the start of her planning journey. The first thing I had to explain to her was that we're never going to fit within the budget of what she's doing. And she was stressing about all the things everybody else has that she needs to have at her party. And I just said to her, it's just your friends.
Yeah,
throw a bar in. You'll find a DJ somewhere and you'll be off and running. It's not really necessarily sometimes about how much you can spend to add all those bits and pieces.
It's also trying to make your guests in their most comfortable environment, in their best environment that they can be in, so they can be the best guests they can be.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, Jo. Is there one rule that you sort of like to run your business by?
one rule. Excuse me.
Like an ethos.
I think Lucy and I, what you see really is what you get. And even to this day, we try and stay true to ourselves. You know, we know in 2009 when we were doing our business plan exactly how we wanted the company to be. And I think Lucy, to this day, we're doing exactly what we wanted to do. And we both say to each other all the time, like, we have not worked this hard to only get this far. Like, there's so much more that we want to do and we know that we're going to do. But slow and steady has always been our mantra. Like, we don't want to run before we can walk, even 14 years later.
I mean, in terms of also maybe perhaps Lucy clients, because we can sometimes get some difficult clients. It does happen. Believe it or not, it's not called the secret world of events for no reason. But you're a very calm personality. Does that help you enormously?
I like the fact that you think I'm a very calm personality. No, I am, and I think
you are.
I think that honesty and trust is my most important, two things I would say about how we run our company as well. And probably the two top things that I would like to continue making sure that are the prime things that we get out there. We come to a client, they need to trust us, they need to put their confidence in us, because otherwise we're not working together to get to the same aim. They're coming to us for a reason.
Well, it's like any relationship.
Exactly. It's got to be a match. We can't just be fighting each other, and that's when you know that you're not with the right client.
Sure. This isn't a case study, but I'm going to pop a picture up on screen. I want to see the look on your face when I pop this up. But
oh God,
this is a gorgeous wedding you got us involved with last summer. Just talk to me about this wedding, about the couple, and how you worked with them, because they've become good friends as well of yours, haven't they?
That wedding was one of the.
I love this picture, by the way.
It was one of the best weddings I've ever done. Yeah, it was challenging, but it was also probably one of the best weddings I've ever produced, and we've ever kind of gone out. And it first of all, it was in Aberdeen.
Yeah. So this is Gemma and Peter's wedding.
This is Gemma and Peter's wedding.
That's Gemma and Peter there.
They both live in London. Their bride's parents live in Aberdeen. And we built it was a 7-week build from start to, well, it was actually about 9-week build.
I was wondering how you were going to describe this structure, because it was
it was basically building an arena in the back garden, in the client's back garden.
Yeah.
It wasn't an ordinary back garden, it was spectacular.
Was one of the challenges was the drop, wasn't it? So
there was a 7-meter drop from house to lake. And when I first arrived on site, having spoken to the client for about 2 months or so, I came to site, went up to Aberdeen, and I looked around the garden. It was freezing cold. It was snowing that day. And the father of the bride said to me, "Can you just do a quick sketch of how you see the wedding build happening?"
Yeah.
I was like, okay, sure. So I said, can I have about an hour just to come back to you?
Yeah,
he
sure.
was like, got 450 guests. We need all these different spaces. We're doing it all outside. Let's go. And we're in Aberdeen with very many weather climates. Anyway, I drew something out, which basically was the end result. It was based very much on
I think
that.
you're seeing some of these shots here. I mean, the deck to where the wedding took place was overlooking the lake, because that's where the bride always wanted to dream she would get married. And then this structure here was just something else.
It was something else.
And Jo, is that something you play obviously a massive part of in terms of the either the meetings or the sort of creative side of that in terms of the planning of this, or is it pretty much left to the London side to deal with that?
Yeah, the London team get on with it. We're pretty independent in terms of how we work with the clients, but we definitely all as an office come together once a month, look through what we're doing, and it's really important for us to pick each other's brains on the creative side. I didn't get to see this wedding, which I'm so sad about, because it was beautiful. Like, these are the weddings that...
Lucky for you then, Jo, someone made a decent film of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was pretty good.
I would probably say, hands down, one of the most spectacular weddings we've ever filmed.
It was.
For a number of reasons.
I think the build element of it, and I learned so much throughout the process, was the biggest build for a wedding we've ever done.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm going to swing back to what you said at the very beginning, because the point for me, perhaps, about this wedding actually is Gemma and Pete and their friends and family, because everybody was just lovely to work with, lovely to film. The environment was just full of energy and love and stamina, because do they know how to party?
Did they go for it?
I
think again that comes down to the trust between myself and the mother and father of the bride.
Yeah,
we got on really well, and I trusted him and he trusted me. We were honest from the beginning. We had our rules for how we were going to treat each meeting, and we stuck by it, and we created something fantastic.
What struck me about this wedding, over and above probably any other wedding I've ever done, was the logistics. The logistics of the planning, of even down to back of house, crew meal times, the structure you had to build to hold all the crew, which people just don't think about when they think about the planning of these weddings. Yeah.
The accommodation. I mean, the transport was a big... It was during the period where all the flights were cancelling all the time. Those sorts of things were the logistical things.
It was just at the end of that whole COVID period as well, so things were all a little bit up in the air.
If you take each step as they come, and you've got to get through those things, and each problem comes with a solution, and it really does.
Jo, I'm going to swing over to you for a second. We're going to flick back to me on the screen. What advice do you give to clients perhaps on managing budgets? Because it's one thing that we always hear, I just didn't realise it would cost that much. Probably more in the private world, and I know you're corporately focused as well.
Definitely happens in the corporate world as well.
How do you work? What advice do you give clients on their budgets?
I think Lucy and I were both very good at managing expectations. From the get-go, we ask what the brief is, how many people, where they're hoping to do it. And we're very good at giving everyone kind of a broken down list of everything that's going to go into the event. And this translates from wedding or corporate, everything from venue, photography, video, flowers, for weddings, groom socks, every single detail, because there's so many things along the way that people forget. And until it's in black and white and you can actually see everything with a line item cost next to it, that's when people sit down and they're like, okay, this is what it's going to cost us to do this.
Yeah,
generally, and obviously then further conversations happen. But
Lucy, do you think generally when clients, certainly in the private market, come to doing their first event, maybe they're coming to doing a 21st birthday, and the last time they did an event was perhaps their own wedding 22 years ago. Do you find they have absolutely no idea of what things cost, and are almost a little bit sometimes?
It's funny because we all live in the same world. Most of our clients in the UK are UK based. Most of Jo's clients are US based. So we're used to going out for dinner. We're used to knowing what the costs of those sorts of things and how that's increasing. But for some reason, people still have the same overall budget for their wedding or their party or whatever it is that they're planning. It's still the same figure as it was 20 years ago. And they haven't
just doesn't
moved.
Translate now.
Exactly. There's no translation in it now.
Yeah. When you're sitting down with, let's say, a wedding client, and you sort of sit there, costs is a big thing for clients, and they do sit there and they do, in their heads, always see the dads racking up the numbers straight away.
It's always the same question. What's this going to cost me?
What's this going to cost?
From the onset.
Yeah. And is that something that literally you just go in and say, ballpark for a wedding at X with X and so caterer and so for us, you're in for, roughly speaking, because you can we can all dream up the biggest things in the world and spend a lot of time doing it just to find clients go, oh.
But whether you've got the biggest budget that we think is the biggest budget that we've ever had, that we've still got to manage the expectations of that budget. Everyone wants the best, and we just have to be able to be as honest, and they have to have the trust in us to be able to say to us, I can't give you a figure of what this is going to cost you, but we can break it down and we can kind of work within parameters here, and things have to flow. We can't spend 90% of your budget on venue and leave very little to anything else, because you're not going to have a flowing party. It's not going to feel right. We've got to split that budget up in the right way.
Yeah, break it down. I always think that the first starting point for that is food, because generally at a wedding, that's going to be one of the biggest costs. Would that be right?
I just think it depends on what's important to the client. Some people prefer flowers, some people prefer entertainment. What do you want to get out of it? and what are we going to transfer this into? You know, a lot of people don't understand what lighting does for an event, how that transfers into atmosphere. It's really about, again, going back to the beginning of the conversation, and that is, what do you want out of this? What message are we trying to convey, whether it's a charity event, a corporate event, a wedding, and how do we put that into the event in the right way with the right budgets?
Is there a perfect amount of time for you guys for planning a wedding?
No.
There's no perfect time.
I mean,
We love a
perfect,
last-minute event.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jo, did you say you prefer a last-minute event?
Oh, I love a last-minute event, only because, well, there's pros and cons to it. There's no margin for error. There's no room for error. You've just got to get on with it and do it. And I love that adrenaline rush.
You're so suited to New York, Jo. You're so... No, I can see why you live there now.
But also decisions have to be made really quickly, and no one's procrastinating over what colour font to put on their invitations.
Yeah.
We're doing it,
exactly.
off we go.
Yeah.
Whereas when we've got a year and a half to plan it.
So I feel like during this past few years we've come through, and everybody books things kind of very, very late. It must be falling straight into everybody's hands of, actually, everybody knows how to execute a party with 3 weeks to go or a month to go or 6 weeks. And the days of having stuff in the diary, it feels to me like for 2 or 3 years ahead, because that's what it used to be. We used to get bookings 2 or 3 years ahead, and that just doesn't exist currently.
No, it doesn't.
And you prefer the new world?
Yeah, I do. I
Keeps
like
us on our
both.
toes.
I like both. I like to know what we've got coming up, and I like to know the
see the
stability
diaries
of
full
it.
with things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we also have quite a lot of annual events that we do, do every year. So we can kind of work our diary around this.
That really helps, doesn't it? To know you've got visibility going out a year or 2 years. And if you guys are doing those big corporate, World Cups, Olympics, you know exactly when they're coming.
Yeah. And we do quite a lot of graduation parties, things like that. We know that they're coming up. We know when they are.
Jo, what's the best part of your job?
I think it goes back to that travel that I said earlier. I know I'm repeating myself, but to be able to, the fact that clients trust us, and Lucy and I joke about this all the time, we're just Lucy and Jo from Stanmore, who knows us? But people call us and ask us to jump on a plane and go and set up at the top of a mountain somewhere, or in the desert in Brazil, the jungle, in Brazil, is wild to us. And it's we have Pinterest moments. The Superbowl marquee video that you were showing earlier was on top of a parking lot in a shopping mall that we had to work through the night with cranes to be able to build. That just never, 10 years ago, I just don't think we ever thought we'd be doing something like that.
That's amazing. For you, Lucy? Best part of your job?
The same thing as I did before as well. The people that I meet, the suppliers that we meet, the relationships we build.
One of the questions I've been asked.
I sound so cold.
What? No, you don't. Not at all. Not at all.
I sound so warm. It's fine.
You sound very New
so
York,
warm,
Jo. It's rubbed off. One of the questions I've been asking everybody on the podcast, and I know you will deal with this well, ladies, is how do you deal with adversity or issues or troubles in events? It does happen.
It always happens. You can't get away from that. You just have to stay calm and find a solution and make it happen.
Just off the bat, is there one thing that, something dramatic that's happened to you where you can think, God, yeah, that story? Is there any sort of one story where something horrible has happened, and how you dealt with it?
I remember one thing that always we have flashbacks or PTSD from is the Sochi Olympics. And if our production guys were here now, they'd be creasing in a corner. I mean, it was really stressful. We had 5 days of being in a mountain, of a hotel that wasn't even finished yet, trucks arriving late, things on the trucks not being there, people coming off of the trucks. I mean, it was just crazy. And it was literally 24 hours a day for 5 days solid that we worked. And looking back, I don't even know how we got that job done, but we did. And it was one of the most stressful times. And even in the stressful times, Lucy, I've seen you remain always calm. And it's that calmness.
Thanks.
Yeah, but the clients need to see that, don't they?
They don't know. They don't know they don't know the problems that we have on site. And I think the problems are the problems that have shorter time periods. So if we've got, during our 7-week build in Scotland, we obviously came up against numerous different problems. but we had time to deal with them, and we had a few days.
What, like the groom wanting to zip wire in over the bride?
Well, that wasn't really a problem.
No,
that
was
that was
just
a
his
bit
feet
of fun,
was going to knock over the front row. Yeah.
More like there being a lot of carpet on site that shrunk.
The carpet shrunk.
The carpet shrunk due to the weather, and we had to get it replaced within a day in Aberdeen, which was fun. But we got over it quite quickly. We got some carpet layers to come at work overnight, and off we went. The problems come when we did a wedding at Syon Park, and the caterers did not bring the dining tables to the venue.
Oh.
And we had
this is the first time I'm hearing this.
We had 2:00 access, and the guests were arriving for a chuppah at 5:00, and we had no dining tables on site. I did panic at that point.
Where did I need to know the end of the story.
It was a Sunday afternoon. It was like in the middle of the summer, and I basically went to there's a hotel about 5 minutes down the road, and I begged them to give us some 6-foot round tables.
And they did.
You
see?
They had an Indian wedding.
You're resourceful.
And they had a few spare tables, so I was like, can I have them? And
amazing.
And I literally carried them from hotel to site.
Let's talk about trends for 2023, something that was mentioned right at the top of the show. What trends are you seeing perhaps in the wedding and corporate market for this year? Who wants to kick off with that?
Trends is I know both Lucy and I are kind of giggling because trends is such a weird topic for us. We get asked this all the time. We always look at our events and we want them to be timeless. Like, we want to look at an event that we did in 2009 and still see that it's fashionable and would work today. So it really depends on what the client's brief is. If you want something really cool and like the most up-to-date entertainment, we'll go out and source it. But otherwise, we try and stay pretty classic with our events and how they look, because we always want you to look back and think, wow, that still looks amazing even today, 20 years later.
I mean, I think there's always going to be colour palettes that work for that season.
Yeah.
There's always going to be entertainment trends. There's always going to be those sorts of things that are in the world that we live in now, the food that we eat, everything that we do in our everyday lives. And that gets transferred into a party of whatever sort it is.
Yeah.
But we're working with what's out there. And when you're planning an event, the guest experience is the most important thing. And that goes back to having the best atmosphere. So really the trends kind of match with whatever your personal preference is. It can't always be us who are putting the trends onto events, because it would be our event every single time. It's got to be what's out there and it comes from the creator. It's how you put a spin on the trend and bring that to life in the event.
The reason why I asked that question is because all I keep seeing at the moment across social media is from wedding planners who I've never heard of. Here's my top tips for the trends of 2023.
What are they?
And I was waiting to hear from the professionals what they are, because actually what I read these blogs and there's really nothing new in terms of trend. Obviously, it's just social marketeering to get their names out so that I see their stuff. But it doesn't seem to me like there's any major shift in trends.
I mean, I think things have changed, especially on the food side of things, from individual plated to sharing platters to making it feel a little bit more sociable. All of those sorts of things you can call a trend.
What, roaming bands? I think has been a great uplift in the marketplace as well.
Yeah, so roaming entertainment, whether that be a band, a DJ, whatever it is. But that, again, is to enhance guest activity. It's not... that's what we're aiming to do all the time.
This is an easy one for you.
Gosh.
Both of you.
Is it?
Yeah, it should be, because you're experienced professionals. I mean, anybody watching this podcast will know that anybody who's been in this business for 14 years knows what they're doing, and equally would have some good advice for people planning, starting on a planning journey. So what I'd like from both of you is 3 top tips for anybody starting out planning an event.
Call us.
www.com.
Yeah, the link's below in the bio. Absolutely.
Yeah.
What advice would you impart to anybody starting on a planning journey?
Trust your planners. Trust them with everything that you can trust them with.
Yeah, find someone exactly that you really trust.
And that you get on with, and that feels like a match. It feels like the right personality to work alongside during the rest of the year or whatever it is that you've got to plan that party.
I mean, one of the important...
You have to...
Sorry, go on, Jo.
I was going to say, and also you have to give up, they have to give up a little bit of control. I feel like we're all control freaks in some nature.
Well, that's really
and for
interesting.
A client, it goes back to the trust. You know, we've got tried and tested formulas that we've been doing for 20 years. So trust us when we say, your idea is great, but if we tweak it and do something like this, it's going to work a lot better for you.
I think the important thing you just said there is we're going to tell you back your advice that you wanted and make sure we put our... because basically people do want control in very many different ways. And when they're spending such, you know, any of these events at whatever level are big money. It doesn't matter if it's a small party, a big part, they're all big money and relatively speaking, and people want to know they're getting the absolute bang for their buck and their influence on it.
But when I say trust, I mean we are out there to make the best party for the budget that you have set us, and we're not trying to, you know, don't go out and
get you to spend money unnecessarily.
Yeah, exactly. Don't go spend your time researching 500 different venues because you think you can get it at a better rate than we can. We are in this industry. We are in the trade. It's the same as going to an interior designer and asking them to do the same thing.
I think one of those points you made also, which it has a lean across to us, which is if you're trusting the planner, you've got to trust the suppliers that they're suggesting to you as well. Because the suppliers that you bring to the table, it's very easy for someone to say, oh, yes, we've got our own local photographer. He'll do a great job, but he may shoot Formula One or sports and not necessarily a live event such as a wedding. Yeah,
we pick and choose our suppliers for each event, and we don't just say, oh, yes, we like working with this person, let's throw them at every event. We actually really do match the personalities of the supplier with our clients. And that's why
budgets as well.
And budgets. And primarily, you have to trust us that we are going to give you the 3 people that we want you then to go out and decide for yourself. These are the 3 people to pick out of because they fit within everything that we've just discussed.
Guys, I want to talk to you about some of sort of the ethics that go on in the events world because, you know, part of this show is really about telling what goes on behind the scenes. And I think there's certain things that sort of almost stand me aback. I had a client yesterday. I'm not sure if we're going to work with them for budget reasons, but we're going to really try and make it happen because I really liked her. She's a lovely lady, but she got totally ripped off on her last party. She was given told by a caterer that her cost would be, you know, £60 for an adult, £30 for a child. And with a week to go, the caterer stuck her with a bill saying, here's the cost of the ovens separately. You need £150 for each of my waiters and waitresses separately. By the way, I didn't put VAT on any of those £60 and £30.
It's awful.
But how do they sleep at night? How is it possible to look someone in the eye and tell them you are going to spend X amount of money on your party with an honest...
It's just so dishonest, exactly.
How could you go about your life
and
like
this
that?
has... Where this has, it has reputational damage to event planners. But I look at, you know, I look at Ruby J and I think to myself, this just doesn't happen with you guys. There's honesty, transparency,
I would
and
rather
integrity.
lose a client from the beginning because we are not within their budget means, and that's not in a bad way at all. But we are doing a job. We are a business. We are doing a job. We put our heart and soul into it, and if we can't get the best out of what we're doing, there is no point. I'd rather not be dishonest and lose sleep over someone else's party.
Yeah, it's not worth the stress either.
No.
We've got many more stresses in our life. We don't need that.
Well, exactly. Yeah. But the problem is that the events industry is tarnished with a brush of mistrust.
But it has been for years and years and years.
Yeah.
Right from the very beginning.
The industry is very, very small. Yeah. The word is going to get out if you have been disloyal or untrustworthy with someone, period.
Somewhere down the line. It may not be that time.
Yeah, it's going to come back.
There are many planners out there, whether it be London, New York, wherever in the world, that are not honest from the very beginning.
Unfortunately, clients need to get a little way down the line before they get to the point of realising that's the case.
I was having this conversation yesterday. Until you've used us, I'm giving us as an example, until you've used a plan, until you've used us, you don't actually know what we do as a job. You don't know how we go about creating this event. And it's the second time round, which is why we get so many why we've got so many loyal clients.
And why they become friends.
And why they become friends. They then begin to realise, oh my gosh, you actually do put everything into it. And you can say that just to sell yourself. But actually, it's my personality, it's Jo's personality. We really care about this stuff.
Sure. I think transparency in events is key across for the enjoyment of the journey. Because if you're not sure...
Yeah.
If you're not sure, then that's kind of the big problem. The internet's a great tool for everybody now. Anybody can search the cost of anything. And to find that things are, there's a markup here or there's commissions there or all sorts going on, it can add significant costs onto a party.
And we're very honest with our clients when we meet them as well. When someone says, how do you work? We tell them, we're not afraid to say, we get a commission from the hotel as a thank you for giving them the business. That is not costing you anymore. In the long run, it's costing you less because we're getting better rates from those venues. But in return, we are earning money for giving them the business. And we're transparent, as you said, with the client from day
Which, by
one.
the way, is normal in 99.9% of every other business in the world.
Yep.
Correct.
Whether that's a travel agent, or it's so
Exactly.
normal. You just kind of get the feeling in the events world that making a profit is a dirty word.
Totally.
Or maybe it's in the UK. Making a profit is a dirty
No,
word.
it's not in the UK. It's everywhere.
If I had to break it down pounds per hour
Oh my gosh.
of what we do,
Yeah,
I sometimes think
would
fees don't even touch the sides.
I mean, they don't, though.
No, they
the
don't.
amount of if I clocked in and clocked out of individual events,
Yeah,
and
if we charge
worked
per
out,
hour of what we were doing, like a lawyer does.
but some of the event companies do.
What would we charge an hour?
I don't.
I don't even
£3?
know what that figure would be.
Like really, some of the events that you get. Okay, you've got 200 people in 2 weeks' time. Great, we know that our management fee is kind of covered. When we're talking about a year and a half down the line, we speak to these clients pretty much every day for, let's say, 8 months
a year,
of the
2
year.
years.
Yeah. Like, apart from the weekends, we are on the other end of the phone. And it sounds so cliche, but it's so true.
Yeah. Even if you have out of office emails on, you're still looking at your emails.
But they've got my
still
WhatsApp.
working.
I mean, they're WhatsApping me while I'm on holiday with my kids. But to some extent, I
we've
quite like
also-
that.
Yeah.
We allow that.
But also we've kind of created that for ourselves. I think we all have. What did we do before Blackberries and iPhones? You couldn't connect. But we also know that we're really reliable and we want to always be available for clients. So we've created this world where unfortunately we don't switch off. Or when we do, there's a chance that they're going to interrupt that.
I drew the line about a year ago. It's very, very rare that we've ever had to turn around to a client and say, I don't think we're fit. Because I'll always bend over back. It doesn't matter how tetchy it can be. We want to do the work. We want everybody to be happy. And it's not about the money.
Yeah.
We just want genuinely people to be happy. I had a client who sent me an email at 11:15 at night. I saw it, but of course I didn't reply because I thought it's 11:15 at night. He then rung me at 7 o'clock in the morning to ask me why I hadn't replied to his email. And I simply said to him, I simply don't think we can work together. Because if you're going to question why I haven't answered an email at 11:15 and then call me at 7 a.m. when I'm literally in bed, I don't think I'm for you. In the nicest possible way, I think you need to find somebody else to...
Well, there's boundaries. It really is like having a relationship, any relationship, whether that's dating or marriage. There's got to be boundaries from the beginning and setting expectations of what I'm going to give you and what I want from you in return. And if you're not a match, then it's just not going to work.
I love that, Jo. You're so New York.
If you're not a match, that's not going to work.
But it's true. It's relationships. And
we have this conversation literally on the phone
doing?
all the time. Like,
Do you speak to each other every day?
we used to every single day. We used to every single day. We don't anymore. We've got quite a lot. Both of us have got quite a lot going on in our lives. Yeah,
I think last year was the first year that we really didn't speak to each other much. We WhatsApp, but usually it's every single day we'll chat, and we're just too busy. And 5 hours, and when the time difference, it just is a lot sometimes.
Jo, for you, the plan is obviously long term. You're staying out in New York. There's a whole big country there for you to conquer.
There's a whole world to conquer.
And your events, they do. I mean, as the title suggests, destination. Tell me some of the countries you've worked in.
Oh gosh.
I mean, almost every state in America. We've done South America. We do a lot in Europe.
Is there one
Russia,
event that stands
Brazil,
out for you?
Greece.
Is there one event that stands out for you as being sort of, right up there?
The Aberdeen wedding.
Okay. I'm pleased you said that. Does for me too. Jo, for you, is there one that sort of stands out?
That's a really tough question. You've actually just caught me off guard. I don't actually know the answer to that because in the moment it could have been amazing and then something else comes along 2 years later. Honestly, I just feel really lucky at the work that we do and the clients that we have.
So there's no one particular event. It's just you love it and then you're in the moment and of course then you move on to the next event.
Yeah, listen, to say you've been involved in the Olympics, I mean, how many people can say that? That's phenomenal. And definitely, I don't think it sinks in for Lucie and I, the events that we work on when they're to that scale, because it's just another job. We have a budget, we have a brief.
When is the next Olympics?
Expectations to meet.
When
Paris
is the
2024.
Paris 2024.
So when it comes to Paris 2024,
We'll
you can invite me to film your time lapse and I can say I was involved in the Olympics with Ruby J.
You can indeed.
I'm going to flip back to weddings for a second because it's a big part of all of our worlds. I'm going to stick up a little trailer that we did, one of your gorgeous weddings, which was once again at Claridge's, which seems to be a big theme. When you first meet with a couple, where does the conversation start for you in terms of sort of organising their weddings?
Well, this particular couple, we had actually done their daughter's wedding at the Dorchester 3 or 4 years before.
Yeah.
So we knew them quite well and I knew them. I didn't know the couple very well. I knew the parents quite well. And where does it all begin? At the beginning, with their personalities. If I don't know, I mean, genuinely, like we just have a chat.
So you'd worked at a West End hotel prior. So is it establishing where the venue's going to be?
Yes, I mean, in the first instance, I guess it's trying to understand guest numbers, all the sort of...
What style of event you want, I think, is a really big thing.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't necessarily mean just... I think people even today still think, oh, it's a wedding, it's going to be 250 people black tie seated, especially in London, less so in New York. But it's not. What if you want like the coolest party on a farm outside?
But we do now have that. We have quite a lot of clients, especially from America, that come over and they don't want that 200-person wedding seated. I didn't have that sort of wedding. So, I can kind of...
Trendsetter, that right there.
Yeah. They want something that feels English, but that they're not sat in a ballroom where you don't know where you are. You could be anywhere in the world. They want something completely different.
Yeah, I think the only wedding I've ever done for Americans who've come over were they flew in a couple of days before to the wedding. We got booked with 2 days to go. The whole wedding got organised in about 4 days, and they flew in from all over the States to Peckforton Castle in Liverpool. And the reason why they flew in is because Earth, Wind and Fire were on a UK tour and they wanted Earth, Wind and Fire as their wedding band.
That's crazy.
Wow.
So and the whole thing got put together in 3 days. Yeah, it was, but it was only 100 people, relatively small.
I mean, some of our clients, we had a client last year who wanted to get married somewhere in the world. This was literally the brief. Who wanted to bring 180 people to France, Spain, Greece, wherever they wanted to. They didn't have a reason for going there. And we literally went to France, Greece, Spain.
You toured the destinations to find somewhere appropriate for them?
Yeah, and we found a great location in Greece.
That sounds like a terrible job, doesn't it? Where should we go? Where should we go this week?
Where should we go on holiday?
Let's try Greece, shall we? Where did they settle for?
They went to Crete.
To Crete?
Yeah.
Lovely.
It was lovely.
Beautiful weather.
It was beautiful weather, beautiful event.
The one thing I guess about Crete and the Mediterranean is you can pretty much guarantee the weather.
Yes, the supplier market there is pretty tough because they're on an island and they're limited to what stock they can get hold of.
It's probably a question that comes up a lot on this show, but people seem to think that going abroad to do a wedding is a cheaper option than doing it in the UK. And a lot of brides and grooms, that's a trend. Weddings abroad.
Yeah.
What would you say about people doing weddings abroad in terms of the costings of it?
I don't think that's a thing. I think that you can create... listen, you've got the backdrop of something completely spectacular when you go abroad and you're looking out to the sea, and so you're not producing in the same way as we produce here. But the weddings that we've done abroad are very different to the weddings that we do in London. Not necessarily from a cost point of view, but just from everyone's on holiday. They come with a different attitude.
Yeah.
And that makes it a very special event.
Well, you and I have been guests at one of these weddings, haven't we?
Yeah,
last
that
summer.
was a good one.
Yeah, we spent a weekend together as guests
In Ibiza.
which
That was
was Jo, I'm waiting to do a wedding with you, obviously, at some point. I'm sure we'll get there. Amazing.
Noted.
I'm going to go to our questions from Instagram, because each week we do get questions in. They're not necessarily specific to you, so if a question pops up about a band, you'll just have to deal with it. Let's have a little look. Where is the best location you have worked abroad and why? I feel like we covered that, but let's ask you, Lucie.
Oh gosh, what's the best location you've worked abroad?
I feel like Big Sky, Montana was a good one for you.
Big Sky was
because you were a little bit sick beforehand, but then you got there and
during COVID.
I'm putting words in your mouth at this point, but the mountains were amazing. It's just a beautiful setting.
It was for Winter Olympics.
Winter Olympics.
Yeah. And that was another hospitality. So I was there for about a week. And I got to ski for a day in Big Sky, which was pretty cool.
Wowza. Jo, you can do the next one then. In general, do brides' parents still pay for weddings?
No, this is a real mixture. It really depends. It's case by case. So many brides and grooms themselves are paying nowadays because we're working. We have amazing jobs. We can afford to do it. It's changed so much from 20 years ago.
With a little help from parents, probably.
Yeah. I feel like everyone kind of chips in rather than it being, okay, my dad's going to pay for this.
I think it's very much a mixed bag now. I think sometimes... Yeah. It depends on circumstances, but I think more often than not, I see it's a conversation amongst the two families who wants to chip what in and take it from there. Yeah, I think the days of the bride's parents paying for everything is quite rare these days.
We still do get some of that though.
What's the best and worst part about being an event planner? Lucie?
We're always tired.
The best and worst. I mean, I would say... The best part, I say the same thing over and over again, it's the people. I really love the clients that, it comes back again to the trust. We find clients that we get along with so well that they actually become friends. In fact, last night I went out for a drink with one of my client friends.
Okay.
Worst bit, hold on a second, I haven't finished the
question. Is it the same clients before they became friends?
Yeah. So the worst bit is...
I think when clients don't listen to you.
Yeah.
When they're being stubborn, and I mean that in the nicest way, like they have such a one route of where they think that they want to end up with their event, but you just know in your heart and from experience that it's not going to work.
Well,
and
again, it
comes
comes back to trust.
Over and over again.
Exactly. They're not trusting us to do our job properly, and therefore, what's the point?
Yeah, I'll put it out there. Have you ever turned a client away because you feel like you just wouldn't work well with them?
Yes.
Yeah.
Interesting that, isn't it?
It's really important to do that. It's just, if it's not a match,
100%.
It's not going to go anywhere. We're not going to enjoy the journey together.
I really respect that as well. I really respect that people who are good at their jobs can say no to work because they feel it's probably not best for everybody.
You have to.
Yeah.
Neither of us are going to shine in our brightest lights if we don't get on.
Yeah. Let's have a look at the next question. What's a good venue outside of London for a 250-person wedding? There aren't that many for that number.
No, it really depends on what you're looking for. We used to have Soho House used to do a lovely marquee. The farmhouse used to do a lovely marquee outside, but they don't do it for such big numbers anymore.
It's hot. It's the number, isn't it?
It's 250 people. Yeah. That's the tough part. I mean, building a marquee anywhere outside of London is great.
Yeah, funnily enough, I do feel if there was a venue outside London for 250 people, it would probably get booked quite a lot because
and we wouldn't get asked this question all the time.
It's a big ask, isn't it? There's the Fairmont in Windsor. Is that 250?
Yeah, it's about 250. I mean, you can build a marquee anywhere, so I would say building a marquee, which we really like doing.
Perfect. Especially
One
in
day,
Scotland.
the answer to that question is going to be Ruby J's venue. Lucie and I have always talked about building our own venue. Maybe one day it will happen.
I think that is a fantastic idea, and I am so amazed.
All for it.
I am so amazed that somebody hasn't done that as yet.
Done it.
Well, interestingly, have you been to Outernet yet?
Yes.
And I don't know what it's like to work there as a party, but I've been to it a couple of times for site visits for parties that didn't end up taking place. But I thought, as a function space that's got kind of all the technology there, of all the screens built in, all the lighting built in, it's certainly something that's sort of much needed.
It is, and they've got another venue very similar to that, which also has all of this technology built in, but the production side of it's still immense. There's a lot of logistics involved in those sorts of venues.
But yeah, I think actually just on the smaller side of the world, not of the market, that's why some of these local spaces, certainly in northwest London, seem to do very, very well, because there's a venue, there's lighting, there's screens, everything's there. They've probably got on-site catering and kitchens. So sort of purpose-built, they do very, very well. Let's get back to where we are. How competitive is the pricing of events? Are you always up against the same planners? I guess being international, you're probably not.
No, we're not. I mean,
Well, it's the same market over here, though, don't forget. The same names pop up as they do in London.
On particular events, on particular social events, yes, we're probably up against the same planners, like different competitive planners. But I would say that I don't feel I don't feel that competition between us. We've all got very different styles. We are two women in the industry, and I don't think there is another company where there's two women, female-only event planners.
Watch the comments fill up now with every female event planning team.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll take that back. We're the first female business that's on Gavin's podcast.
There you go.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah. No, actually, you're not. Episode 2 was.
Oh yes, that's right.
Was going solo. Was Arthi.
Yeah. Okay.
And she's female only.
We are
in the social market. I think in London, you kind of hear the same 4 or 5 names, and if a client's coming to you, they can say, "Oh, I've seen so and so," but we never really feel. And I think Lucy touched on this earlier. We really don't feel a competition, whether it's here or in London. It's, again, down to personalities. Who likes working with us may not want to work with someone else, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And that works.
But I think Lucy and I kind of keep ourselves to ourselves as well. We don't really get involved in the competition, in inverted commas.
Love
and
that.
What's going on.
Great attitude to have. Is there one small piece of advice you give all clients you work with?
Trust us.
Trust. And that's it. Perfect. Right.
That was easy.
Is Bridezilla actually a thing? Who wants to answer this one? I love your honesty. Good. You're the first person on the show in 2 seasons to answer yes. Tell me why, Jo. Tell me how. How does it manifest?
I mean, I hate the term Bridezilla because it sounds awful. I just think for some brides, they've dreamt of their big day all of their life. And again, it comes back to what we were talking about earlier, the control thing. They had this vision and this Pinterest board, mood board for 25, 30 years, and they want it to come true. And if one tiny thing isn't quite how they thought it, they get very controlling. Their OCD comes out, and it's tough.
Well, I think they're also completely overwhelmed by the amount of information they're given.
Well, it's perfection. They want perfection.
And they don't know how to cope with it.
Yeah.
And that's where your calmness and your expertise comes in, just to make sure that all the way through the journey they calm down a little bit.
Yeah, it really is.
I mean, you've got to enjoy your planning. You've got to enjoy the journey. And if you're not enjoying it with the planners you're working with, then...
It actually really upsets me that the amount of meetings I have coming into the last week where I just touch base and say, hey, looking forward to seeing you at the weekend, so excited. And the dread and fear, and sometimes the despair that people haven't enjoyed the journey they've been on, or things have just got out of control in terms of costs and budgets, and you almost feel like the experience has been slightly spoiled because they get into that final hurdle and they just feel a bit deflated, which I think is awful.
We rarely have that. We don't have that because we don't get it. Let it get to that. That you've got, if you're going to be a great bride and groom with a great party at the end of it and have the best night of your life, you've got to enjoy the whole process.
Lucy, ask me the question about Bridezilla. Ask me the question.
Is Bridezilla actually a thing?
Is Bridezilla actually
I'd like to share a little story.
Oh, gosh.
It's a secret world of events. I've got to give away a secret. I did a wedding a few years ago where the bride, we laugh about it now, and with the bride, she actually had a fight with her sister, full-on hair pulling, while she was having her makeup done and her hair done. And it all descended into absolute chaos. And we didn't know whether to step out or ring the bell.
Well, filming.
Did you film? Did you film it?
We stopped the cameras, funnily enough. We did stop the cameras because we felt that was not something we were going to capture because it wouldn't be funny after the event. And we managed to sort of we went in and calmed things down dramatically, threw everybody out the room and just got the bride on her own because she was just literally so overwhelmed, and everything that was going on was just stressing her out, including the hairdresser, the makeup art, everything just seemed to be...
I mean,
we cleared the room for 45 minutes.
This is a party to celebrate the love between you and another person.
Well, I feel like there may have been other things going on there.
There was definitely some family politics going on, but
they're always, when these things come up, it's a big day. There's a lot that goes into it. You're always going to feel You're always going to feel like that. But we've got to get you to a point where you feel totally relaxed and you put the pressure on us, not on them.
I love that.
Yeah.
Ladies, it's been fantastic having you on today's podcast. You've been an absolute dream pair to come and join us for the premiere episode of season 2. It wasn't so bad, Lucy, was it?
It wasn't so bad. I'm not shaking anymore either.
That's good to hear. If you've enjoyed today's podcast, please do leave us some comments below. But until next time, we'll see you again on the Secret World of Events. Great to have you here.
I had decided I wanted to get into events.
Don't rush into anything.
Left university and pretty much went straight into it.
It's just got to happen. So do what you need to make it happen.
I've never been one to follow rules.
We've spent a lot of time together, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
Always keeping up with trends and fads.
How do you manage that? The expectations versus the reality of budgeting?
It's always insightful to get a gauge as to what their reference point is with budget.
Pre-COVID, I didn't know what Zoom was.
Everything is done to a higher level.
That detail Jeremy and the band and the guys will go into, by definition, makes our life easier.
There's levels and levels, and that comes in the detail.